The auditorium buzzed with the restless chatter of children, their voices a mix of excitement and nervous giggles. Rows of folding chairs lined the polished wooden floor, each one occupied by a squirming second grader clutching a handmade card or a lopsided craft project. Balloons bobbed lazily in the corners, their red and blue strings curling in the faint breeze from an open window. The air smelled faintly of glue, crayons, and the sugary tang of cupcakes stacked on a table near the stage. It was Father's Day at Willow Creek Elementary, and the annual celebration was in full swing. Sonia sat in the third row, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her dark curls were pulled back with a simple blue ribbon, and her eyes, wide and hopeful, kept darting toward the double doors at the back of the room. The other kids were buzzing, showing off their dads, some in work boots and flannel, others in crisp button-downs, one in a firefighter jacket that made the whole class gasp. But Sonia's chair beside her remained empty. Her fingers twisted the hem of her dress, a soft yellow one she'd chosen because her dad once said it reminded him of sunshine. Mrs. Callahan, the teacher, stood at the front, her gray hair pinned neatly and her smile warm as she called each child to the stage. "Tommy, why don't you tell us about your dad?" she said, her voice gentle as she gestured to a freckled boy bouncing in his seat. Tommy bounded up, dragging a lanky man in a mechanic's jumpsuit behind him. The class clapped as Tommy rambled about his dad fixing cars and teaching him to ride a bike. Sonia's heart sank a little deeper with each presentation. She glanced at the doors again. Nothing. Whispers floated around her, sharp and stinging despite their hushed tones. "Her dad's probably too busy," one girl said, leaning toward her friend. "Yeah, too rich to show up," another muttered, giggling behind her hand. Sonia's cheeks burned, but she kept her chin high, her eyes fixed on the stage. She wouldn't let them see her flinch. Mrs. Callahan's voice broke through the murmurs. "Sonia, sweetheart, would you like to come up?" Her tone was kind, but there was a flicker of pity in her eyes, as if she already knew Sonia's dad wouldn't show. Sonia hesitated, her heart thumping. She stood slowly, smoothing her dress, and took a step toward the stage. The whispers grew louder, a soft hum of curiosity and judgment. She clutched the card she'd made, construction paper folded carefully, with a drawing of her and her dad holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Her fingers trembled as she reached the podium. Sonia's voice wavered, barely audible over the creak of chairs. She glanced at Mrs. Callahan, who nodded encouragingly. He's really busy, but he's the best dad." She stopped, her throat tight. The empty chair beside her spot in the third row felt like a spotlight on her loneliness. Then, the doors at the back of the auditorium swung open with a soft thud. Every head turned. A man stepped inside, his silhouette sharp against the sunlight streaming through the doorway. He was tall, his navy suit tailored to perfection, his dark hair flecked with silver at the temples. His polished shoes clicked softly on the floor as he walked forward, his presence commanding the room without effort. Whispers rippled through the crowd, no longer mocking but awestruck. No way, that's her dad?" Sonia's face lit up, her eyes sparkling like stars. "Dad," she called, her voice breaking with relief. She waved her card in the air, nearly tripping over her own feet as she ran back to her seat to grab his hand. Charles, her father, gave her a small, warm smile, his usually stern features softening as he let her pull him toward the stage. The room fell silent, every eye on them. Mrs. Callahan cleared her throat, her smile wider now. "Well, Sonia, it looks like your dad made it after all. Why don't you tell us about him?" Sonia stood tall, her card clutched to her chest. Charles stood beside her, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable but his eyes fixed on his daughter. My dad's name is Charles, Sonia began, her voice steadier now. He's really important. He runs a big company, and he's always working, but he still makes time for me. He taught me how to play chess, even though I'm not very good yet. She giggled, glancing up at him. Charles's lips twitched, the hint of a smile breaking through. He's my hero, Sonia continued, her voice growing stronger. When I'm scared at night, he tells me stories about knights and dragons, and he says I'm braver than any of them. And he always says I'm his sunshine. Her cheeks flushed, but her eyes shone with pride. The class erupted in applause, louder than for anyone else, as if the room itself was swept up in her joy. Charles reached down, resting a hand on her shoulder. I'm proud of you, Sonia, he said softly, his deep voice carrying just enough of the front rows to hear. The words were simple, but they made Sonia beam, her smile so wide it seemed to light the whole stage. As they stepped down, Sonia clutching his hand, the mood in the room shifted. Parents murmured to each other, impressed. Kids stared, wide-eyed, whispering about how Sonia's dad looked like someone from a movie. But across the room, near the cupcake table, one person stood frozen. Olivia, the event planner, gripped a clipboard so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her auburn hair was swept into a neat bun, her green eyes locked on Charles. For a moment, their gazes met, and the air seemed to thicken with something unspoken. Shock, recognition, and a flicker of something deeper. Olivia turned away quickly, busying herself with rearranging napkins, but her hands trembled. Charles's jaw tightened, and he looked down at Sonia, forcing a smile as she tugged him toward their seats. Come on, Dad. You have to try the cupcakes, she chirped, oblivious to the tension. The rest of the presentations passed in a blur, but the air in the auditorium felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Sonia chattered happily, showing Charles her card again, pointing out the glitter she'd used for the sun. He nodded, his responses warm but distracted, his eyes drifting toward Olivia every few minutes. She stayed on the opposite side of the room, her movements stiff, her smile forced as she handed out programs to parents. When the event ended, families spilled out into the school courtyard, where a small picnic was set up under a canopy of string lights. Sonia ran ahead, joining her friends at a table piled with cookies. Charles lingered near the auditorium doors, his phone in hand as if checking messages, but his gaze followed Olivia as she packed up her supplies. She glanced up, catching his eye again, and this time, neither looked away. Charles, Olivia said finally, her voice low, almost lost in the chatter of the courtyard. She stepped closer, her clipboard held like a shield. I didn't expect to see you here. Olivia, he replied, his tone clipped but not cold. It's been a long time. Her lips parted, as if to say something, but she stopped herself. The weight of years hung between them, unspoken but heavy. Sonia's laughter rang out from the picnic table, breaking the moment. Charles glanced at his daughter, then back at Olivia. We should talk, he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. Olivia nodded, just once, her expression unreadable. Maybe, she said, turning away to gather her things. Charles watched her go, his hand tightening around his phone. Sonia ran back to him, her face smeared with chocolate frosting, and grabbed his arm. Dad, come play tag with us, she begged, tugging him toward the other kids. He smiled, letting her pull him along, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The courtyard was alive with laughter and music, but for Charles and Olivia, the past had just walked back into their lives, and it wasn't letting go. The school courtyard glowed under the soft twinkle of string lights as the Father's Day picnic stretched into the early evening. Children darted between tables, their squeals mixing with the hum of parents' conversations. The air carried the scent of grilled hot dogs and freshly cut grass, a perfect summer evening. Sonia was in the thick of it, her yellow dress fluttering as she chased a friend through a game of tag, her laughter bright and unburdened. Charles stood near a table laden with lemonade pitchers, his posture relaxed but his eyes distant. He sipped from a plastic cup, his gaze drifting toward Olivia, who was stacking leftover programs at the edge of the canopy. Olivia moved with purpose, her auburn hair catching the golden light as she tucked a stray strand behind her ear. She was older now, her features sharper than Charles remembered, but the way she carried herself, confident yet guarded, felt achingly familiar. He hadn't seen her in over a decade, not since the night everything fell apart. The memory hit him like a wave. Her tear-streaked face, the slamming of a door, the silence that followed. He shook his head, trying to focus on Sonia's laughter, but the past was relentless. Sonia bounded over, her cheeks flushed. "Dad, you're not playing," she said, grabbing his hand. Her card, now slightly crumpled, was still clutched in her other hand. "You have to come run with us." Charles chuckled, setting down his cup. "I'm not sure I'm fast enough to keep up with you, sunshine," he said, ruffling her curls. But his eyes flicked to Olivia again, and Sonia noticed. She tilted her head, following his gaze. "Who's that lady, Dad?" she asked, her voice curious. "She keeps looking at you." Charles froze, his smile faltering. "She's just the event planner, Sonia. She organized today." He straightened, steering her toward the game. "Come on, let's see if I can catch you." But Sonia wasn't so easily distracted. As they jogged toward the other kids, she kept glancing back at Olivia, her brow furrowed. There was something about the way her dad's voice had tightened, the way the lady's hands had paused when she looked at him. Sonia was only 8, but she was sharp, and she knew when grown-ups were hiding something. Across the courtyard, Olivia felt the weight of Charles's presence like a physical thing. She busied herself with folding chairs, her movements mechanical. She hadn't expected this. Not him, not here, not now. Years ago, she'd been his assistant at his fledgling company, back when he was just a driven young man with big dreams and a charming smile. They'd been close, too close, maybe. Late nights at the office, shared coffee breaks, moments when their hands brushed and neither pulled away. But then came the scandal, the whispers, the accusations. She'd left without looking back, and he'd never try to stop her. "Olivia." Mrs. Callahan's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. The teacher stood beside her, holding a tray of empty cupcake wrappers. "You did a wonderful job today. The kids loved it." Olivia forced a smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Callahan. It was a lot of work, but worth it." Her eyes darted to Charles, who was now chasing Sonia in a half-hearted game of tag, his laughter strained but genuine. Mrs. Callahan followed her gaze. "Sonia's father is quite something, isn't he?" she said, her tone light but probing. "I've never seen the children so starstruck." Olivia's smile tightened. "He's hard to miss," she said, turning back to the chairs. Mrs. Callahan lingered, as if sensing there was more to say, but she didn't press. Instead, she patted Olivia's arm and walked off to check on the kids. As the picnic wound down, parents began gathering their children, the crowd thinning under the fading light. Sonia tugged Charles toward the parking lot, her energy barely dimmed. "Can we get ice cream on the way home?" she asked, swinging his hand. "Sure, sunshine," he said, his voice warm but his mind elsewhere. He glanced back one last time, catching Olivia's silhouette against the glow of the string lights. She was alone now, packing up the last of the decorations. For a moment, he considered walking over, saying something, anything to bridge the gap of years. But Sonia's chatter pulled him back, and he let her lead him to the car. At home, their sprawling estate was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt too big for just two people. Sonia sat cross-legged on the living room rug, her card now propped on the coffee table like a trophy. Charles loosened his tie, sinking into an armchair. The room was all sleek lines and modern furniture, but Sonia's colorful drawings taped to the walls added a touch of warmth. "Dad, you looked funny when you saw that lady," Sonia said suddenly, her eyes narrowing as she licked a spoonful of chocolate ice cream. "Do you know her?" Charles's hand paused on his glass of water. "It's complicated, Sonia," he said, his tone careful. "I knew her a long time ago, before you were born." Sonia's eyes widened. "Was she your friend? Like a best friend?" He chuckled, but it was hollow. "Something like that." He stood, ruffling her hair. "It's late. Time for bed." Sonia pouted, but didn't argue. As she brushed her teeth, Charles stood in the kitchen, staring at his phone. Olivia's name was still in his contacts, untouched for years. His thumb hovered over the call button, but he didn't press it. Instead, he set the phone down and joined Sonia for her bedtime story, his voice steady as he spun a tale of knights and dragons. But his thoughts kept drifting to auburn hair and green eyes, and the words they'd never said. The next morning, Sonia was up early, her mind buzzing with questions. At breakfast, she pushed her cereal around her bowl, her eyes fixed on Charles. "Dad, why don't you talk to that lady anymore? Did you have a fight?" Charles nearly choked on his coffee. "Sonia, you're too young to worry about things like that," he said, but his voice was gentle. "It's just sometimes people drift apart." "But you looked sad," she pressed, her small face serious. "And she looked sad too. Maybe you should say sorry." He stared at her, struck by the simplicity of her words. "It's not that easy," he said finally, but the words felt heavy, like an excuse. Sonia didn't push further, but her mind was already turning. At school, she watched Olivia from a distance during recess, noting the way she smiled at the kids, but seemed to carry a quiet weight. By the time the final bell rang, Sonia had a plan. She slipped a note into her backpack, her handwriting wobbly but determined. Asterisk, "Dear Miss Olivia, please come to our house for dinner to say thank you for Father's Day. From Sonia, asterisk." She didn't tell Charles. She didn't tell anyone. But as she climbed into the car that afternoon, her heart raced with the thrill of her secret. Whatever had happened between her dad and Olivia, Sonia was sure she could fix it. After all, wasn't that what heroes did? The sun dipped low over Willow Creek, casting long shadows across the school's front lawn. Olivia stood by her car, her arms full of leftover decorations from the Father's Day event. The parking lot was nearly empty, the last of the parents' cars pulling away. She fumbled with her keys, her mind still tangled in the shock of seeing Charles. His face, older, sharper, but still so familiar, had stirred memories she'd buried long ago. The late nights at his startup, the way he'd laugh at her terrible coffee-making skills, the moment he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the room. And then the betrayal. Not his, but the world's. Whispers of favoritism, accusations of an affair that never happened. She'd walked away to save them both, but the ache had never fully left. She was about to slide into her car when a small figure darted across the lot. "Miss Olivia." Sonia's voice was bright, her yellow backpack bouncing as she ran. Olivia froze, her heart lurching. Sonia's curls were slightly askew, her cheeks pink from running. She held out a folded piece of paper, her eyes wide with purpose. "Sonia, what's this?" Olivia asked, crouching to meet her gaze. The girl's enthusiasm was infectious, but there was a flicker of nervousness in her smile. "It's for you," Sonia said, thrusting the note forward. "Please read it." Olivia unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the childish scrawl. Asterisk, "Dear Miss Olivia, please come to our house for dinner to say thank you for Father's Day. From Sonia." Asterisk, the words were simple, but they hit like a punch. Olivia's gaze flicked to Sonia, then to the sleek black car idling at the curb, where Charles was waiting. He hadn't seen the note, his attention on his phone, but Olivia felt exposed, as if the note had laid bare every unspoken word between them. "Oh, Sonia, that's so sweet," Olivia said, her voice catching. "But I'm not sure. Please." Sonia's eyes were huge, pleading. "You made Father's Day so nice, and I want to say thank you. And Dad would like it too." Olivia's heart twisted. She glanced at Charles again, his profile sharp against the car's tinted window. Did he know about this? Had he put Sonia up to it? No, that wasn't his style. Charles was many things, driven, guarded, brilliant, but manipulative wasn't one of them. This was all Sonia, her innocence cutting through years of distance like a knife. "I'll think about it," Olivia said finally, folding the note carefully. "Thank you, Sonia. This means a lot." Sonia beamed, then ran back to the car, her mission accomplished. Olivia watched her go, the note burning in her hand. She slid into her car, her thoughts a jumble. Dinner at Charles's house. The idea was absurd, impossible, and yet a small part of her, the part that still remembered his laugh, his quiet strength, wanted to say yes. That evening, Charles's mansion was a world away from the modest school courtyard. The dining room glowed under a crystal chandelier, its long table set with plates Sonia had insisted on arranging herself. She'd spent the afternoon convincing Charles to host a thank-you dinner for the event planner, though she hadn't mentioned Olivia's name. Charles, distracted by a late work call, had agreed without much thought, assuming it was a school formality. Now, as he adjusted his cufflinks in the hallway, he was beginning to suspect his daughter's motives. "Sonia, who exactly is coming tonight?" he asked, stepping into the dining room. Sonia was straightening a napkin, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Just someone special," she said, her voice teasing. Before he could press further, the doorbell chimed, a soft, elegant sound that echoed through the house. Charles opened the door, and there she was. Olivia stood on the threshold, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders, a simple navy dress hugging her frame. She held a small bouquet of flowers, her fingers nervous around the stems. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them crackled, heavy with memory. "Olivia," Charles said, his voice low, almost a question. "You're here." "Sonia invited me," she said quickly, holding up the note as proof. "I didn't want to disappoint her." Charles's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of something else, caution, maybe, or hope. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "She's been very secretive about this." Sonia bounded into the foyer, her face lighting up. "Miss Olivia, you came." She grabbed Olivia's hand, pulling her toward the dining room. "I helped make dessert. It's chocolate cake, but I got some frosting on the counter." Olivia laughed, the sound breaking the tension. "I love chocolate cake," she said, letting Sonia lead her. Charles followed, his expression unreadable, but his eyes never leaving Olivia. Dinner was awkward at first. The table felt too large for three, the clink of silverware loud in the silence. Sonia filled the gaps, chattering about school, her friends, the time she tried to teach their dog to fetch her slippers. Charles and Olivia responded, their voices polite but careful, like two people stepping around broken glass. But Sonia's warmth was relentless, pulling them into her orbit. She asked Olivia about her job, her favorite flowers, whether she liked to play chess. "Chess?" Olivia smiled, glancing at Charles. "I used to play. A long time ago." Charles's fork paused midair. "You were terrible at it," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Olivia raised an eyebrow, her old spark returning. "I beat you once." "Beginner's luck," he shot back, and for a moment they were back in his old office, laughing over a battered chessboard during a late-night work session. Sonia's eyes darted between them, her smile sly. "You should play again," she said. "Dad's really good, but I bet you could win." The conversation shifted, the air lighter now. Olivia shared stories of planning school events. Her voice animated as she described a disastrous talent show where a kid's magic act set off the fire alarm. Charles laughed, a real laugh, deep and unguarded. Olivia caught herself staring, then looked away, her cheeks warm. After dinner, Sonia insisted on showing Olivia her room. The walls were a gallery of drawings, castles, dragons, a stick-figure family under a bright yellow sun. "This is me and Dad," Sonia said, pointing to one. "And that's our dog, Max. He's lazy." Olivia smiled, her heart aching at the sight of Sonia's world, so full of love despite the empty spaces. "These are beautiful, Sonia," she said. "You're an artist." Sonia grinned, then yawned, her energy finally fading. Charles appeared in the doorway. "Time for bed, sunshine," he said. Sonia protested, but let him scoop her up, her arms looping around his neck. "Will you come back, Miss Olivia?" Sonia mumbled, her eyes heavy. Olivia hesitated, her gaze meeting Charles's. "Maybe," she said softly, "if it's okay with your dad." Charles didn't answer, but his eyes held hers, searching. He carried Sonia to bed, leaving Olivia in the quiet of the dining room. She wandered to the window, staring out at the sprawling garden, its roses silver in the moonlight. Footsteps behind her made her turn. "Olivia," Charles said, his voice low. "We need to talk." She nodded, her heart pounding. "Yes, we do." The living room was bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp, its light casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Outside, the night was still, the only sound the faint chirp of crickets in the garden. Olivia stood by the window, her arms crossed, the bouquet she'd brought still resting on the dining table. Charles closed the door to Sonia's room quietly, his footsteps slow as he joined her. The air between them was heavy, not with anger, but with the weight of years. Things said, things unsaid, and the ache of what might have been. "I didn't expect this," Olivia said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned to face him, her green eyes searching his. Sonia's note. "I almost didn't come." Charles leaned against the arm of a sofa, his hands in his pockets. "I didn't know she invited you," he said. "She's persistent." Olivia gave a small smile. "She's wonderful, Charles. She's so much like you." He looked down, a flicker of pride softening his features. "She's better than me," he said. "Braver. Kinda." He paused, then met her gaze. "I'm glad you came." The words hung between them, simple but loaded. Olivia's fingers tightened on her arms, as if bracing herself. "Why didn't you ever reach out?" she asked, her voice steady but edged with pain. "After everything, you just let me go." Charles's jaw tightened, and for a moment he looked away, his eyes tracing the pattern of the rug. "I thought it was what you wanted," he said. "You left so fast, Olivia. You didn't give me a chance to fix it." "Fix it?" Her voice rose slightly, sharp with disbelief. "Charles, they were calling me a gold digger, saying I was using you to climb a ladder. Your board, your investors, they made it clear I was a liability. I left to protect you." He stepped closer, his voice low but intense. "You think I cared about them? I cared about you. I should have fought harder, but I was young and stupid, and I thought you'd come back." Olivia's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears away. "I couldn't," she said. "I had nothing left. No job, no reputation. I rebuilt my life from scratch, Charles. And you built an empire." He flinched, as if her words were a physical blow. "An empire," he said bitterly, "and a daughter who's the only reason I don't feel empty." He ran a hand through his hair, his composure fraying. "I never stopped thinking about you, Olivia. Not once." The confession hit her like a wave, and she turned back to the window, her reflection pale in the glass. She wanted to be angry, to hold on to the hurt, but his words stirred something deeper, regret, longing, the ghost of what they'd had. She remembered the night they'd almost crossed the line, standing too close in his office, his hand brushing hers as they pored over blueprints. She'd pulled away, scared of the rumors already swirling. And then the scandal hit, a fabricated story about her manipulating him for a promotion. She'd quit the next day, leaving a note she knew he'd never answer. "Charles," she said, turning to face him, "we can't undo the past. But Sonia, she's trying to bring us together. She sees something we're too stubborn to admit." He nodded, his eyes soft but guarded. "She's always been good at seeing what I miss," he said. "But what do you want, Olivia? I need to know." She hesitated, her heart racing. "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought I was over this, over you. But seeing you again, it's not that simple." They stood in silence, the distance between them both vast and fragile. The lamp flickered, casting their shadows closer together. Charles took a step forward, then stopped, as if afraid to break the moment. "Stay," he said softly. "Just for a little longer. Let's talk. Really talk." Olivia nodded, her throat tight. "Okay," she said, "but no promises." They sat on the sofa, the space between them careful but not cold. Charles poured 2 glasses of wine, the clink of the bottle against the glass the only sound. They talked, haltingly at first, then with growing ease. He told her about Sonia's birth, how her mother had left when she was a baby, how he'd learned to braid hair from YouTube tutorials. Olivia laughed, sharing stories of her own reinvention. Moving to Willow Creek, starting her event planning business, finding solace in the chaos of school functions. The years began to melt away, not erased but softened, their laughter a bridge over the pain. Upstairs, Sonia lay in bed, her eyes half open as she listened to the faint murmur of voices below. She hugged her pillow, a small smile tugging at her lips. Her plan was working, even if she didn't fully understand why it mattered so much. She drifted off, dreaming of knights and dragons, and a family that felt whole. The night grew late, and Olivia stood to leave. Charles walked her to the door, the air cooler now, the stars bright above the garden. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice low. "For Sonia, and for me." Olivia met his gaze, her heart caught between fear and hope. "Good night, Charles," she said, stepping into the night. But as she drove away, the note Sonia had written sat on her passenger seat, a reminder that some things weren't so easily left behind. The next day, Sonia was relentless. At breakfast, she peppered Charles with questions. Did Miss Olivia like the cake? Is she coming back? Can we invite her again? Charles answered with vague smiles, but his thoughts were on the night before. The way Olivia's laugh had felt like coming home. At school, Sonia found Olivia during lunch, her eyes bright with determination. "Miss Olivia, you have to come back," she said. "Dad was happy last night. Really happy." Olivia's heart ached at the girl's earnestness. "Sonia, your dad and we have a lot to figure out," she said gently. "But I'm glad I came." Sonia nodded, undeterred. "You'll see," she said, skipping off to join her friends. "It's going to be great." Olivia watched her go, her mind a tangle of doubt and possibility. Charles's words echoed in her head. "I never stopped thinking about you." She didn't know if she could trust them or herself. But as she packed up her supplies that afternoon, she found herself humming, a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Whatever came next, something had shifted and there was no going back. The following week was a blur of routine. School for Sonia, meetings for Charles, and a flurry of event planning for Olivia. But beneath the surface, something had changed. Charles found himself checking his phone more often, half expecting a message from Olivia. Olivia, meanwhile, caught herself smiling at memories of their dinner. The way Charles's eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way Sonia's joy had filled the room. She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on her work, but they lingered like the scent of roses after a summer rain. Sonia, however, was not one for subtlety. At school, she became Olivia's shadow, popping up during recess with drawings or questions about the next school event. "Are you planning the talent show?" she asked one afternoon, perched on a bench as Olivia sorted flyers. "Can I help?" Olivia laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're quite the helper, Sonia. But I think you'd steal the show if you were on stage." Sonia grinned, then leaned closer, her voice conspiratorial. "You should come to our house again. Dad's making spaghetti this weekend. He's really good at it." Olivia's smile faltered. "Sonia, I don't know if that's a good idea," she said gently. "Your dad and we're just old friends." "But you like him," Sonia said, her tone matter of fact. "And he likes you. I can tell." Olivia's cheeks flushed, and she busied herself with the flyers. "It's not that simple, sweetheart," she said. But Sonia's words stuck with her, a quiet truth she wasn't ready to face. That evening, Charles called. Olivia stared at her phone, her thumb hovering over the answer button. She let it go to voicemail, her heart pounding. But when she listened to his message, his voice low, hesitant, asking if she'd like to meet for coffee, she couldn't stop the warmth that spread through her chest. She called him back before she could talk herself out of it. "Coffee sounds nice," she said when he answered, her voice steadier than she felt. "Just coffee." They met at a small cafe in town, its windows steamed from the morning chill. Charles was already there, his suit jacket draped over the chair, his sleeves rolled up. He looked less like the billionaire CEO and more like the man she'd known years ago, the one who'd shared takeout and dreams in a cramped office. They ordered coffee, black for him, latte for her, and sat across from each other, the table a small but significant barrier. "I owe you an apology," Charles said, his hands wrapped around his mug. "For back then, I should have stood up for you. I let you walk away, and I've regretted it every day since." Olivia stirred her latte, the spoon clinking softly. "I didn't make it easy," she said. "I was hurt and I ran, but I should have talked to you. I should have trusted you." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You weren't a liability, Olivia. You were the best part of that time. I was too caught up in building something to see what I was losing." Her throat tightened, and she looked down, tracing the rim of her cup. "We were young," she said. "We made mistakes. But Charles, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has changed." "I know," he said, "but I don't want to lose you again. Not without trying." The words hung between them, raw and unguarded. Olivia's heart raced, torn between fear and the pull of what could be. They talked for hours, the cafe emptying around them. They spoke of the years apart, her struggle to rebuild, his rise to success, the loneliness they'd both carried. By the time they parted, the air felt lighter, as if they'd begun to untangle the knots of their past. Sonia, meanwhile, was plotting her next move. She'd overheard Charles on the phone, his voice softer than usual, and she knew it was about Olivia. At school, she slipped another note into Olivia's bag, this one with a drawing of 3 stick figures under a sun, labeled Dad, me, Miss Olivia. When Olivia found it later, she laughed, tears pricking her eyes. The girl was relentless, and Olivia was starting to wonder if she was right. That weekend, Charles invited Olivia to a picnic in the park with Sonia. It wasn't a date, he insisted, just a chance for Sonia to spend time with her. But when Olivia arrived, her sundress swaying in the breeze, Charles's breath caught. Sonia ran to her, hugging her tightly, and the 3 of them spread a blanket under a sprawling oak tree. They ate sandwiches, played frisbee, and laughed as Sonia tried to teach Olivia a cartwheel, both of them collapsing in a giggling heap. Charles watched, his heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. Olivia caught his gaze, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just them, the park, the laughter, the possibility of something new. But as the sun began to set, Olivia's smile faded slightly, her old fears creeping in. Could she trust this? Could she trust him? As they packed up, Sonia tugged at Olivia's hand. "You're coming back, right?" she asked, her eyes wide. Olivia hesitated, then smiled. "I'll try, Sonia," she said. "I promise." That night, Charles and Olivia lingered by her car, Sonia already half asleep in the back seat. "Thank you for today," Olivia said, her voice soft. "It felt good." "It did," Charles said. He reached out, his hand brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. "Olivia, I don't know what this is yet, but I want to find out. With you." She nodded, her heart racing. "One step at a time," she said. "For Sonia, and for us." As she drove away, Charles watched her taillights disappear, a quiet hope settling in his chest. But in the back of his mind, he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. And Sonia, with her boundless heart, was counting on them both. Summer stretched into golden days, and Willow Creek buzzed with the rhythm of small-town life. Sonia's school was preparing for its annual talent show, and Olivia was in her element, coordinating props and calming nervous kids. But this time, there was a lightness to her step, a smile that lingered longer than usual. She and Charles had been meeting regularly. Coffee here, a walk there, small moments that build a fragile but growing connection. Sonia, of course, was thrilled, her drawings now featuring 3 stick figures in every scene. One evening, Charles invited Olivia to the house again, this time for a simple dinner. Just the 3 of them, no pretense. The dining room was less formal now, the chandelier dimmed, the table set with mismatched plates Sonia had chosen. Charles cooked, his sleeves rolled up as he stirred a pot of marinara sauce. The kitchen filled with a warm scent of garlic and basil. Olivia chopped vegetables, her movements easy, almost natural, as if she'd always belonged there. Sonia sat at the counter, swinging her legs. "Miss Olivia, are you going to be in the talent show?" she asked, her eyes bright. Olivia laughed, brushing her hands on a dish towel. "No way, Sonia. I'm better behind the scenes." "You could sing," Sonia said. "Or dance." "Dad, you should dance with her." Charles chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm not sure the world's ready for my dancing, sunshine." Olivia grinned, a playful spark in her eyes. "Oh, I remember your dancing," she said. "That company party, what was it, 2012? You nearly took out a table." He laughed, the sound deep and genuine. "And you were no better, tripping over your own feet." Sonia giggled, delighted by their banter. The evening unfolded like a warm blanket, wrapping them in laughter and shared stories. After dinner, they moved to the living room, where Sonia insisted on a board game. Monopoly turned into a riot, with Sonia hoarding properties and Olivia pretending to be outraged when Charles bankrupted her. For the first time in years, Charles felt like the house was a home, not just a place to sleep. As Sonia yawned and headed to bed, Charles and Olivia stayed on the sofa, the game pieces scattered between them. The lamp cast a soft glow, and the silence was comfortable, not heavy. Olivia traced the edge of a game card, her voice quiet. "This feels good, Charles," she said. "But I'm scared. What if we mess this up again?" He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "We won't," he said. "Not this time. I've learned what matters, Olivia. You, Sonia, this." He gestured to the room, to the life they were starting to build. She looked at him, her eyes searching. "I want to believe that," she said. "I do. Then let's try," he said. "No pressure, no rush. Just us." She nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Okay," she whispered. "Just us." The talent show arrived, a whirlwind of glitter and chaos. Olivia was everywhere, adjusting lights, soothing stage fright, and corralling props. Charles and Sonia sat in the front row, Sonia clutching a homemade sign that read "Go Willow Creek." When Olivia stepped on stage to introduce the acts, Charles couldn't take his eyes off her. She was confident, radiant, her laughter infectious as she handled a microphone glitch with ease. Sonia leaned over, whispering, "She's awesome, Dad." He smiled, squeezing her hand. "She is." The show was a hit, the auditorium filled with applause and cheers. Afterward, Sonia ran to Olivia, hugging her tightly. "You made it so cool," she said. Olivia laughed, ruffling her curls. Charles approached, his hands in his pockets, a quiet pride in his eyes. "You outdid yourself," he said. "Sonia's right. You're amazing." Olivia blushed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's just a school show," she said, but her smile betrayed her. As families spilled into the courtyard for refreshments, Sonia tugged at Olivia's hand. "Miss Olivia, I have something to tell you," she said, her voice serious. She glanced at Charles, then back at Olivia. "I just want everyone I love to be happy. And I love you." Olivia's breath caught, her eyes glistening. She knelt, pulling Sonia into a hug. "Oh, Sonia," she said, "I love you too." Charles watched, his heart full. He stepped closer, resting a hand on Sonia's shoulder. "She's right," he said, his voice low. "We're better with you." Olivia stood, her eyes meeting his. The courtyard buzzed around them, but for that moment, it was just the three of them. She took his hand, her fingers warm against his. "Let's do this," she said. Together, the summer faded into fall, and the days grew shorter, but the warmth between them only grew. Olivia became a fixture of the house, helping Sonia with homework, cooking with Charles, laughing over late-night chess games. The past wasn't forgotten, but it was no longer a weight. They built something new, stitch by stitch, moment by moment. One evening, as leaves fell outside and the fire crackled in the living room, Sonia presented them with a new drawing. 3 stick figures under a sun, holding hands, a dog at their feet. "This is us," she said, her voice proud. "My family." Charles and Olivia exchanged a look, their hands finding each other's. "It is," Charles said, pulling Sonia into a hug. Olivia joined them, her arms wrapping around them both. The house was no longer too big, the quiet no longer empty. It was filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a future they'd all chosen. And as Sonia's giggles echoed through the room, Charles and Olivia knew they'd finally found their way home. As the firelight flickered in Charles, Olivia, and Sonia's home, a new chapter unfolded, one woven with forgiveness, love, and the bravery to start anew. Sonia's drawing, with its 3 stick figures under a radiant yellow sun, was more than art. It was a vow of a family made whole. Life doesn't always offer second chances, but when it does, it's up to us to seize them. If this story of heartbreak and healing moved you, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone who believes in the power of love. Don't forget to ring the bell for more stories that warm the heart. Until next time, keep chasing happiness.